How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Agave and Cactus Talk. Today, I wanted to talk about some of the agave and cactus I lost in, the fire in Altadena, but mainly talk about one of the lessons that, I had been applying from a long time ago, because I always thought it was not a good idea to keep all my plants in one place, seeing that my business depends a lot on the sale of plants, right? So a lot of people don't know, but I mainly could care less about making spirits, to be honest with you. I'm a profitable agave farm, and I haven't needed to make any commercial agave spirits. I don't really know of any farms like that in Mexico. So, take it for whatever that's worth, that I know what I'm doing. But the point of this podcast, why I wanted to make this today, is just I've learned over the time that I've been living here in California that there's always stuff that happens. I've dealt with fires in Northern California, Southern California. I've had different properties that have burned down. I've had, a lot of stuff you could say that I learned from fires. But the main thing was that you should never keep everything in one place. Right? So maybe today's title for this podcast will be why you should diversify where you grow your agave and cactus. Because if I would have had everything only on that backyard nursery that I had in Altadena at my home, then I probably would have be out of business right now. Because that would have been a super failure. I think that the only thing that's kept me in the game is diversifying where I grow. So I have agaves and or my agave genetics split up in between a property that has greenhouses here at the farm, which is, the main experimental farm. I've got, or I had some in Altadena. I've got some at different family members' homes throughout California as just backups. You know what I mean? I grow a lot of different rare plants, and many of them are under threat. Many of them are one-of-ones. Many of them are limited to a handful of, replicas, you could say. Like, for instance, if I've made a hybrid, there might only be a few of those. If I bought a hybrid from someone and they lost all their genetics, say, in a fire, I might be the only one with it left. I had a lot of agave shawi that I propagated from seeds. And I had a lot of agave shawi plants. The same way utensils. I had seedlings and plants at that Altadena property that were real mature and large, and I was hoping to repopulate a lot of California farms and restoration projects with shawi and utensils, which now is just going to take me a little bit longer, but I'm still going to do it. But the point being, the hybrids that I created, the one-of-ones, some of the hybrids that I had purchased their genetics legally. Like if somebody makes a hybrid, you can purchase the genetics from them. And if you're the only one with that genetics, you, for all legal terms, basically now own the genetics. Because there is no other plant like that. Like, for instance, say you take agave A and you take agave B and you make a hybrid. It's like two humans having a kid. the genetics will still be 50-50, but no two kids will be the same, right? So each unique hybrid that's created splits the genetics in different ways, and those genetics aren't usually replicatable. So you can get close, but it's like a kid. I mean, you can't, make another one that's going to be exactly alike, even if you use the two same parents, right? But what am I getting at here? It's like, if all of our genetics are just in the hands of a few collectors like me, a few farmers like me, this is really bad. Like, the genetic pool is at risk a lot. You know what I mean? Because it can just go down in a fire, or it could go down in a flood, or it could go down in any disaster, right? So, the only reason I'm making this podcast today is to tell you to diversify where you put your agave. Maybe you're saying to yourself, well, I barely have enough money for one property. How am I going to get a second property? And that's understandable, but then understand you will deal with this problem. So, use your friend's house or use somebody else's property. I don't care how you figure it out, but you'll be thanking me when something happens to your property and you have another sector of your business still up and running. So I lost probably close to $80,000 worth of agave and cactus in the Altadena fire. And I will never get those back. Those plants that I made are priceless. They don't have a price because I didn't even fucking sell them yet. My plan was to patent them, tissue culture them and patent them. Now I can't do that shit. Gotta make some new ones. Which, I can do, but like I mentioned, they'll never be the same. Those genetics are gone forever. And this is why I also think that tissue culture has its place. I should have been tissue cultured those a long time ago, but I didn't. So, if you make some super rare shit, I advise you to tissue culture it, because even if it is a clone of a clone, the genetics is saved. Like, there's only 2 remaining wild populations of agave showy in the wild in California. To lose several hundred agave showy that, to be honest with you, might be more than what the fuck is left in those 2 wild populations. That's horrible for California. Like, not only was that my loss, that's the whole state's loss. Because now we have way less agave showy for restoration, same with utensis. And the genetics that I had created or bought or whatever, they're gone. Nobody will ever be able to use them again. And what does that mean for the industry? Like, imagine if the cultivar of Tequiliana was lost, or if the cultivar of Espadin was lost, or the several cultivars of Tobola was lost. What the hell would that mean for the spirit production in Mexico, right? Like, it's not good, At the end of the day, it's not good having all of these genetics in one place. And I recommend to you to try to diversify where you put it, If you want to buy a 100-acre farm, do like me, buy a bunch of 5, 10, 20-acre pieces, because that way, you have the same price that you're going to spend, but you have multiple properties spread out different places. So, my greenhouses are on the complete other side of fucking Lancaster. I've got my farm here on the east, and in the west I have the greenhouses. And then, the Altadena property was like 80 miles away from all this shit. So, it was a good effort. I knew this might happen one day. It's just sad that it happens. You get me? But yeah, if all the genetics of the rare agave and cactus are just in one seed bank, in one, plant nursery, we're so fucked, Like, if this fire's made me realize anything, it's that we need more of this genetics in more people's hands. Because you could say there's probably a few hundred people that have an incredible amount of agave genetics in California, in the United States, or in Mexico, in Australia. I mean, I know someone who has a collection in Germany that's like over 100 different species. It's like, you know, it's too concentrated right now, the genetics. If it's only in these few hands and something happens to all of these genetics, it's an issue for the larger industry, I believe. That maybe isn't being talked about as much right now. It's even the same thing in Mexico. It's like some of the genetics, for instance, are left to one small locale in the middle of a fucking forest or something, you know? Like you could say that with Kirchovi, Agave Kirchovi in Oaxaca. You know, it's like in this really, really small mountainous region limited to one locale. And it's like, if that locale gets developed, it's done. You get me? So even if it's not a farm, even if it's an ecosystem and the genetics is just in that ecosystem, we're fucked. Because to tell you, Oaxaca's developing at a fucking alarming rate, just like Jalisco. You know, and Oaxaca and Jalisco are two of the most heavily forested states in Mexico. Okay? So every time there's development, I'm like, what's being lost? You get me? And a lot of these agave species probably have been lost already, and we don't even know because the shit got developed, you know? So the basic premise of what I'm trying to get at is we cannot have our agave concentrated in one person's hands, the genetics, one ecosystem, one farm, one, you know, small city or whatever. It's like it needs to be spread out all over. I think that it would be smart to do what I've been doing here in a bunch of different places. So I still have a greenhouse with, you know, 2 or plus of every single species. I think I'm up to, I've been buying a bunch of shit lately, but I'm up to like, I think 112. And those species, right, they're all in that greenhouse like a little note. My homie called it a Noah's Ark. And it's like, that's really what it is. It's like I have a backup for the world of agave genetics and cactus genetics. But I feel like I'm the only motherfucker thinking about this. Because I only know of 2 other people that have greenhouses that have more species than me. There's probably more. Like I would say some of the people from Outman Plant, some of the people like Hidden Agave or, you know, Greg Starr, they probably have greenhouses. They probably have like 200 or 300 agave species. I just never have seen them in person. Or, you know, I don't even know them, to be honest with you. I just know a lot of the online agave community and researchers, and those are people that are often talked about because they're very good at identifying stuff and, you know, growing these different unique species and producing new hybrids. So, hold on, let me get this little baby to her mom. Alright, I'm back. Well, you gotta stick with the herd, man. Stop crying. Huh? This isn't the government office. Come on, stop crying. Get with the fucking program. Alright, so what I was saying is just, yeah, there's a lot of hybridizers here in California that have really, really large collections of agave. And there's probably like a couple dozen of us, but there's not many, you know? So we need more of these like genetic, you could say agave banks, you know? Gritona, ¿cómo chingas tú? Vete pa' allá. Wolf, push him, dude. What are you doing? Huh? Push him, Wolf. Yeah. So, what I was saying is just these agave genetics need to be in more hands. You know, the more hands we can put it in, I feel like the better it'll be for the agave community. And, you know, it sucks to lose a bunch of agave that you've been spending fucking decade plus growing and cultivating and, you know, hybridizing. I mean, agave hybrids are not like a cactus. You know what I mean? Like, I can fucking make 1,000 cactus hybrids this year. Agave hybrids have to line up the flower rates, which usually never are at the same fucking time. So you're freezing pollen and having to use old pollen, basically. So it's like there's a lot of, it's not an easy fucking process. The point being, you'll probably have 6 years before you can even get a chance to hybridize an agave. And then you have another 5 years before you even get the first fucking seedlings of that. Because you need to plant the seed out. So, it'll take several years for you to get your first plants that are sellable. You know what I mean? Because you got to grow those mother plants out and then get pups or get more, seeds or whatever. So, it's just a complicated ass, long, time-consuming process. And if you lose a couple of these big genetic pools, we're gonna be done for as far as agave genetics go. So, and I know some researcher will pop in and be like, "Oh, but you could just fucking tissue culture a bunch of different species and create all these new hybrids in the lab." Yeah, man, but that's the fucking problem. It's like, I don't think any lab can produce a hybrid that is better than nature. Because we take one thing out and we put another in. You get me? But it's like, nature knows how to make this shit work in tandem. You get me? It doesn't just pool shit randomly. So, whenever it changes the plant, it makes sure to balance that plant. Whereas humans make very imbalanced lab plants. You get me? A lot of the citrus that has come out of the United States lab, are a piece of shit, to be honest with you. Like, they're superly heavily plagued, super weak citrus. Compare that, how I've explained in another podcast, to some fucking seed that some grandma threw on the ground, and a citrus researcher comes up and is like, "Oh, this shit doesn't have greening," goes and researches the genetics and realizes it's a new genetics that hasn't been classified yet of grapefruit, and realizes it has the greening, but it could survive, and it was prospering, unlike the majority of their lab-made citrus. You got 50 years of citrus researchers couldn't do what some granny did by throwing a fucking seed in the backyard. So you'll never convince me that lab-made hybrids are better. You know what I mean? That's just, don't even go down that path with me. I got a lot of history that I can pull out, and I'll just destroy that argument very quickly. But the point is, I understand that point that the researchers are making, but that's not the way that I want to pursue. Slow and steady is the way. We just need to diversify a bit so we don't get screwed. But I will say, a lot of the larger mature agave, they did make it through the fire because, they're fire resistant. So, as I was driving through Altadena, I saw a lot of agave and cactus burned up a little bit, torched, but a lot of the mature stuff, grand majority of it made it, and so we're already proving in real time this fire resistance of this agave. You get me? So agave can even help you prevent a lot of these disasters like the fire in Altadena. I mean, if my farm or if my home had a lot more agave instead of a lot more combustible trees, then who knows if that would have saved it, but it for sure would have been better off, right? Would have had a better chance. Because, once your trees start going down and throwing embers everywhere, you're fucked, Same if your roof catches fire and starts throwing embers. Which is probably why on the rebuild of that house in Altadena, we're going to build a concrete fortress. And we're definitely not going to put asphalt shingles or trees that aren't like cactus and agave that are fire resistant. The natives like the oaks. That shit made it. But, this is just a quick little podcast. Wanted to tell you guys, just don't concentrate all your agave genetics in one place. Try to diversify where you put them, and try to take my loss of agave there in Altadena as a lesson to you that think about, how I was telling you, what if you have all your agave on one property and you have a fire like happened to me in Altadena? What would that mean for your business? Would that mean you're out of business? Would that mean that you now have to find a new farm? Would that mean that now that your agave dream is over? You know, because what if you're fucking 6 years in and a fire happens on year 6.5? You're fucked. If you only had one plan, man, that's going to be very bad. And fires are common in all over California. I've had more fire in NorCal than I've had in SoCal. So all these NorCal people looking over there like, oh, I'm safe over, I'm not in LA. Don't, what do they call it? Forget the saying, but don't get too excited, man. Because fires in NorCal are like donuts and coffee. You know what I mean? Sonoma, Lake, Napa, all these areas. Shit, there's a reason I live down here in SoCal, man. The fires are incredible up there. But, yeah, it is now in SoCal. So no matter where you go in California, this will affect you. Think about how fire will affect your agave farm, how to diversify your genetics and where you put them. Maybe if, you're in an area with a lot of fire, you want to surround, you want to pull the California mission, back in the 1700s or the 1800s, they surrounded their missions in agave and cactus, and yes, they harvested those plants, but me thinking as a historian back, I'm like, that probably wasn't a fucking, or was a very smart thing to do because of the amount of fire there was too. If you got a border wall of basically plants that are full of water, it's like having a fucking water hydrant there, you know what I mean? Like, these plants are going to be able to withstand the fire a lot and hopefully slow its spread into your farm. So, yeah, think about not only diversifying where you put your agave, but how it can help you build a more resilient farm to withstand fire or, withstand other types of things. Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I wanted to talk about today. And, I hope you, like I said, take my loss as a lesson. And, yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen to you. A worst case, how I was explaining. I was prepared for it. I didn't think it was going to ever come, but it came. And I'm glad I had my agave in multiple places, and we're still running and gunning. The expansion of the main farm here is going to be put on hold a little bit as I sell a lot of those plants to, just fucking home burn down, right? Got a lot of bills right now. So, you're going to be selling a lot of plants. If you need any plants, you already know to hit up your boy. But I can always grow more plants. What I can't get is get the genetics back, and that's, it pains me. Honestly, I mean, the house is sad, really, really sad thing losing your house. But the plants I had a connection to that I could never have to a house, and because they're alive, and I talked to them and fucking bred them when they were little, encouraged them. Yeah, it's different when a relationship with a living being, right? But yeah, those like I said, I could grow more plants, but those genetics will never come back. But you got a bunch of rares, spread them out. Like literally, like I started giving agave, some of my rare agave, to different friends that I have around here in LA, because I'm just like, yeah, now I have one property down, so it's like I have to make sure that I have backups. I have more backups now because it already happened to me, and I'm not going to let that happen again. Any one of one now that I have, before I move it anywhere or I sell anything of it, I will tissue culture it and likely pattern it. I already, have decided that. And before I, move, like if I buy a one-of-one hybrid that somebody's created or something, and I'm buying the genetics, I'm going to immediately tissue culture and patent it as well, because I do not want this problem to happen again to me. You can do whatever you want, but just realize that if you got some rares, start putting them in different places, because you don't want that to happen to you. Your whole property burned down, you got all your rare plants there. I had some of those Agave Utahensis were like $1,000 each, Not that I purchased them, but that's like what they were worth, They were large as hell already. I think that it's going to be an interesting time rebuilding a bunch of that, but I got some hope. I'm going to put likely a nursery there on that property, because it will be several years before permitting, engineering, and even wanting to build a home there. So in the meantime, I'm probably going to build up the nursery again there, but now it'll probably be the whole property. And whenever we want to put a home there, then I'll just bring all that to another farm. So that's my solution. I never quit. The fire could come and take my home in Altadena, but I'm going to put a nursery there as soon as they allow me, which, as soon as I get the hazmat crews in there to clean up all the crap, take out the soil and put new soil, I'm going to get started on that. So, there is some positives, like the cactus, some of the rare cactus that I had planted in the ground. That was probably some of the smartest shit I could have done, because the stuff in pots burnt to the crisp, but the shit in the ground burnt down to the trunk, but the roots are still there. And I noticed on some of these little, root systems, they used to be trees, right? So they're already putting out little pads, and I'm like, yay, they didn't fucking die. So some of my agave hybrids that I've created are actually alive, which made me very, very excited. But not the case so much for the Agave 101s or hybrids that I've created. So, agave is a much more fickle genetic pool because of that shit. It's like, it's not going to come back like a cactus. That's why I use it a lot as trap plants, the cactus, because it can always come back strong as soon as you water it. But if you have agave and it's eaten by a gopher, it's done, Usually, So, hope you learned something today, and you try to apply some of the stuff I'm teaching here, and where's your mom? Where's your mom? Find your mom. Find your mom. Yeah, Llorona, find your mom. You find your mom, you won't cry. Sorry, the baby goaties. She fell asleep, and she over here screaming at me because I'm telling her to get up. I'm like, girl, you don't even know how many coyotes there are in this world. But, yeah, hopefully you learned something, and you can apply it, and maybe it's not applicable, and you just, only grow a monoculture or whatever. You could just ignore everything, But have a great rest of the day, everyone, and hope you enjoyed the podcast and all that. Peace out.